Shermie, welcome back to the Slowest Blitz, where we are playing Asphodel. It's turn 38! There's things. There's always things. That's fine. That's how this game goes, right? So, let's jump into some stuff, shall we? So we've been doing a load of site searching, hoping primarily that we kind of get lucky, and maybe we can make something happen out of it. We did an At the End of the Rainbow, which got us a Gorge of Echoes. Dark Knowledge, nothing. Arcane Probing, nothing. Another At the End of the Rainbow got us a Singing Tree. Harvest, nothing. Dark Knowledge, nothing. Arcane Probing, nothing. Harvest. So, we got 2 sites for Glamour. So, +1 Glamour there, and then a +2 Glamour here. If we can actually retain them, that would put our Glamour income up to 7, which is interesting. Glamour, unfortunately, is kind of like... It's one of the ones where... Obviously, we'll use it if we can get it, but it's one of the ones that we're not like... Ugh. Like, we would much rather have some more nature, astral, or death. Glamour will find a use for, so I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. But it is what it is. So, the normal smattering of battles. So we saw this on the map. We do lose this. It's because there's nothing there. We got a pretty big little, I say big little retinue of longbows. I do like the little situation that we've got going on here. Oh, cool. Pretty cool. Longbows are fun. We were attacked in Shade Forest. We've got another little squad of longbows led by a werewolf. I really like what Man's doing with the differing raiding tactics, like trying out differing things to see, hey, is this going to work? Because, you know, this will work against 1 PD. That's not what's here. And in fairness, though, even though that's not what's here, it's still going to put a hurt on mannequins. I cannot say enough how good these longbows are against just mannequins. They slap, honestly. But, you know, the mannequins are free, the longbows have a cost. 19 longbowmen. They do kill 20 units. So not too bad, honestly, all things said and done. But this is, of course, a win for us. And the beauty here is that this is in Shade Forest. We didn't have anyone there. That's not true. Yeah, we had moved a commander there. But even then, right, like, the Hierophants, Centaur Hierophants can lead undead, so you kind of like always have a little bit of extra chaff, mannequin chaff in your dominion, which I think is pretty cool. So that's nice. We attack in Eterol. Trying to poke back into our former territories. Not really much going on here. We sent a small squad of Black Centaurs to go do what they do, smash. I do hate this part of them, right? Like, once they hit, they'll often start throwing javelins, and that's just like, just go. Stop, don't throw your javelins. We get hit in Norfangs. Kind of the counter squad, right? Like, we've got our 5 little Black Centaurs. He's got fucking 6 Knights of Avalon over here. And it's a similar situation. There's no way we do anything there. We attack in Trottern. And this is a big squad. This is based off of the concept of last turn we tried to take back Trottern from that little archery squad that we saw earlier in Forest of the Lost. Obviously, we know they're not here anymore, so we don't have to worry about that, but it was one of those... we had sent a small stack of mannequins that got butchered by those archers, and it was if we do that again and he sticks around, then that's just shame on us, right? So this time, we sent way more. There's a reason why we commit, though, aside from just ensuring. We'll talk more about that here in a second. So we lose 2 Carrion horses and 5 Carrion wolves against 21 PD, which is pretty typical. We attack in Iron Peaks. Got a bunch of Jade Maidens here, and we're up against a small stack of PD. Jade Maidens get blessed, and go do their thing. They should fare fairly well against this situation. 26 kills, pretty nice. We attack into Namor. We got a little stack of heavy infantry out front. These we recruited very early on in the game. Basically when we were like, oh god, we might get attacked by 3 people, so let's get these things out ASAP. So they're kind of just hanging out, and now we're just going to use them as bait, right? And we'll see. They did not get used as bait. Well, fuck me. Not the greatest setup here. If we lose any black centaurs to this. We did. We lost a black centaur to that. That's really unfortunate. We probably should have had those heavy infantries further up, and I don't know that I even checked whether or not there were heavy cav here. But still, probably should have had them on attack cavalry if we did not. The intention being, right, was if we run into a small stack of Knights of Avalon, maybe the heavy cav will tie them up just long enough for the Black Centaurs to hit them in the flank. But that did not work here. And that was just against heavy cav rather than a Knights of Avalon. So, is what it is. We have an unexpected event in Illidar, 15 PD. So Illidar being over here, it previously had 1 PD. So up to 16. Unfortunately, it's Jaguar tribe, so they're not gonna do anything. Is what it is. And we get 8 air gems in Helmshire. That's pretty cool. This is actually kind of funny. Our Black Harpy does get found in Hubberton. Gets some of his units killed by merely existing because of the fire that just oozes out of this place. It's kind of funny. So he loses 4 archers, 2 cave kobolds, and 1 flagellant. I'm actually somewhat sad that I lost this guy because I was trying to keep eyes on both Bandar Log and Hubberton that I could try to see these final battles, right? So is what it is, but we've got a very large stack of Abyssians in Hubberton, but we can see there's a massive stack of Tiger Riders and other goodies in Bandar Log. We'll try to keep an eye out there. Entrance to the fortification in Vaclez is breached. That's not good. And then we have Phaeacia is at 478 out of 600. Okay. What the are we doing? Oh god, this turn. It hurts me internally. So I think I mentioned this last time, that this was definitely, one, that the state of the game had been wearing on me, and I was kind of like getting fatigued. And part of that is also in response to some of the other stuff that was going on. I'm not going to go super into depth. I suffered some personal loss in and around this time period. And work was also just like a huge pain in the ass. So I was pretty close to autopilot at this point in the game. Still actively wanting to do things, but just not having the energy to execute on some of the concepts. So you'll see spurts of life in some of these turns where, like, one turn I don't do a whole lot, and then another turn I have a lot more active moves. But even in the turns with active moves, not a lot of thought is given to them, and we run into a lot of situations where it's like, oh, fuck. Okay, well then. So, That being aside, is what it is. I think this is both a blessing and a curse, and part of the interesting part of Dominions and long form strategy gaming as a whole. And I've waxed on about this, I think, before in the past, but I think it's very interesting, also from like a comparative standpoint, on the idea that, you know, when you're playing a video game and you're just, say you're playing it for an afternoon and that's all you're focused on, it is what it is, right? Especially like a strategy game, you can really like focus in your effort and your mindset, and that just becomes everything that's going on with that, with you, with that, right? You take like a general in a war environment, especially, you know, older medieval or ancient scenarios, and they're out in the field on campaign, and their life, their day in activities are, you know, executing whatever it is that they're doing. It's a very interesting scenario when you're like, I may play 40 turns of a game in an afternoon that spans years. But in reality, like, those were years that people lived. And life gets in the way, right? So I think it's a very interesting comparative when you take a strategy game like Dominions and you play it over the span of months, because then suddenly, again, life does get in the way, right? And I think that is, this isn't a complaint. This is me saying I think that's actively cool, because I think it actually shows the different levels of engagement that you can have even in something like this. It can show the different types of people who can like flip switches in their heads, etc., etc. I think it's really, really interesting to see scenarios where players clearly get fatigued or clearly are distracted by things going on in their lives, or what have you. A very interesting concept to me overall. So, that aside, we are going to try to do a couple of things this turn. There's a couple of big key points in a momento. Sorry, let me mute my Discord. Mute. So we've got a couple of things going on this turn that are important. Obviously, Vaclez is a big deal. Fortification is broken. There are 410 units here. We do not have a large garrison. We have 151 units here. We don't have a lot of magic. What are we going to do about that, right? Phaeacia, next on the chopping block, sitting at 478 out of 600. It's fine for now with what it has going on top of it. But obviously, if whatever happens in Vaclez gets to Phaeacia, it'll break in like a turn or two. So, we've got the Phaeacian lands, which are a big deal. And then we've got what we've talked about previously, the concept of, do we have enough left in kind of like Sylvania? Most of it is in Sylvania at this point in time, because we've moved almost all of the rest of it out of Asphodel, out of Shadowglade, into Sylvania as kind of a staging ground, right? Because the intention is, hey, I should march on Man or Haloma, right? That is the generalized idea. So, let's talk about a few of the little things that we've got going on before we dive into some of the higher level scenarios. So you can see there's a lot of red arrows in Manland. So, what we are doing there is really just trying to take advantage of Man's focus on the southern Phaeacian lands, and fish, basically, to see if we can squish some things here and there. So, take Eagle Reach Mountains, for example. We're sending in a couple of stacks of centaurs, 2 of them being black centaurs. We are sending in a stack of Jade Maidens into Glistening Wood. We are sending in a stack of that same stack, right? Black Centaurs and Heavy Infantry into Vangar. Bycliff, again, just a bunch more mannequins, crossing our fingers type scenario. And then over in Mammoth Grove, we have our vampire coming in with some centaur warriors as well, right? And the intention here is, so we can see, very strong, well organized. There is a small army of longbowmen here. Force led by Ictiid Shaman, single landless knight, single werewolf, etc., etc. So along this border, we're not expecting a lot of province defense, but I am expecting a lot of province defense here. So this I'm not positive about, but I do want to test Man's defenses. If he's been putting 10 PD, right, then I think we'll be okay. If he's been putting 25 PD in these back lines, so he can use these as, you know, his temples / research area, etc., etc., then I think we're going to run into a bit of an issue. So, but I want to test that theory, see what we can actually do. We obviously have a lot of little site searches going on. And then we have what are probably the bigger moves. So we'll talk about Vaclez last because that's probably the biggest one. But the other reason we positioned in Trotturn in the manner in which we did is because it's an easy jump from Asphodel down to Trotturn, and from Trotturn over towards Phaeacia. So we are pulling in a wide amount of troops, the total of 424. Mostly mannequins with a few special units here or there. We do have some behemoths in here. We do have some Sagittarian carcasses. We do have some Carrion Furies, which we really haven't brought to bear yet, as well as several Minotaurs and some Black Minotaur. Now, a lot of these aren't combined because they're coming in from a lot of different locations. Once we actually get into Forest of the Lost, we'll actually have them combined. We also are flying in nature gems, although we do have some nature gems for things like Howl. We also have a Carrion Lord here for our blessing, which is going to affect, obviously, the Sagittarian carcasses, but namely the Black Minotaurs and Carrion Furies. I actually think the Carrion Furies, unfortunately, just due to the nature of the way they work, with them being undead, they're not going to get a massive benefit from our bless. But it is going to counteract the defense loss from Berserker, which is kind of interesting. So we'll see how well that actually goes. There's some other components, obviously, that'll make the Carrion Furies a little more killy if they have our bless. So I'm pretty interested to see how that all pans out. So yeah, the aside there is we are combining forces in Forest of the Lost so that we can relieve the Phaeacian siege. There's no relieving the Vaclez siege. Either he comes in or he doesn't. So that just is what it is. So what are we doing for Vaclez? For Vaclez, we had the option of sneaking out basically all of our mages, right? They're all stealthy. I actually think this is a very interesting thing about Asphodel that I didn't really take a advantage much of, is the idea that you can sneak out a wide amount of their units. If someone is sitting on a fort or something like that, you can actually sneak out, especially if you're recruiting specifically for that purpose. Like most centaurs are stealthy, etc., etc. You can actually kind of like really gear yourself towards that. Unfortunately, Jade Maidens, Minotaur Warriors are not stealthy. And 410 units is gonna kill 151 units. We are not a quality army, so to speak. And man is a quality army with the Knights of Avalon. And there's longbowmen, crossbowmen, etc., etc. here. We are choosing, whether correct or incorrect, to leave our mages here and stand and fight. So we are risking a fair bit of monetary value here. Aside from just the mages, obviously there are a bunch of Minotaur warriors here and a bunch of Jade Maidens here, which is another pretty large investment in gold. We're not hoping to win. We're hoping to hurt man. Basically to do another repeat of Asphodel, to make it be so that it is punitive for man to take Beclez. And if we are successful, right? If, for example, we kill, 20 Knights of Avalon and 80 Longbowmen or other mixed things, right? If we are successful in doing that, then we're going to pull the trigger from Sylvania. We're going to march towards Man or Haloma, right? That is the idea. Because I think if we can... One of the things that's keeping us from just pulling the trigger immediately is I don't know that we have enough chaff after the losses that we've suffered to just go fight man in the open field, right? We might, but I don't know that we did. So, the hope here is if we're punitive enough to man at Beclez, if this is a Pyrrhic enough victory for him, then that gives us the impetus to march with what we have and be less concerned about can we take his combined forces. So how are we going to try to accomplish that? Primarily, we're banking on the breach, right? That is obviously the thing. We do not have very many mannequins here, which honestly is not good, but also I don't know that it would matter that much because I think he's brought to bear a bunch of monks. I would assume there's probably 20-ish monks here at this point. I probably should have pinged this turn, or last turn into this turn, which I did not, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's obviously a big issue. So we're kind of really hoping that we can choke up the bottleneck, the breach, with what chaff we do have, as well as a bunch of fucking Minotaurs. Right? Like the hope is he comes in with a bunch of Knights of Avalon and gets Minotaured in the face. We are throwing out things like Wooden Warriors and Giant Warriors in order to try directly on top of these Minotaurs in order to try to get as many of them as high a protection in combination with high HP. Get these guys, they have 4 base protection, so get them a little bit higher on the protection. More HP, the HP keeps them alive when they get hit. They pop berserking, they suddenly have even more protection, and they're hitting even harder, and they're hitting even more frequently. And maybe that'll actually be a thing. Unfortunately, the issue is we don't have very many casters, so we're unlikely to get a crazy amount of people with both of these. Wooden Warriors is a 20 plus area of effect, so probably going to get a lot of the Minotaur Warriors with that. But Giant Warriors is only a 10 AoE, so probably not going to get very many there, up to a maximum of, what is that? 2 per square, so up to a maximum of 20 out of the 46, and that's if we're lucky and we just hit the perfect location, right? Aside from that, we got a bunch of people blessing, and then moving, advance and cast spells. There's not really a whole lot that they're going to be able to do at Nature 1, Death 1, right? But they'll do what they can. And then the big stickler is a Phao. Now, unfortunately, Beclez is not a forest, so this Phao is unlikely to be especially effective. But the hope is that the Because what I do think happens is if the Knights of Avalon get into the bottleneck with the Minotaurs are going to get cut down, obviously. The hope is that the Minotaurs will smash a few Knights along the way, right? The issue is that if you put a whole bunch of longbowmen at their back, the longbows aren't going to do shit to the Knights of Avalon, but they will absolutely chew through the Minotaurs. So the hope is that the wolves from the Howl are going to distract the longbowmen long enough, spraying shots as the wolves spawn in from the sides and behind them. Maybe we get a few longbow kills here or there. Hopefully my archers, right, on my walls get a couple of longbow kills here or there. And we kind of like send a mix there, right? That's the generalized kind of game plan. Again, we're not expecting to win this, but we're hoping that we kill 10 would be a minimum on the Knights of Avalon. 20 would be nice. 30 Knights of Avalon would be fantastic, right? And then, any amount of longbows that we could kill would be nice, but significantly less consequential, right? If we could kill upwards of 80 or so, and when I say longbows, I mean the combination of other stuff, longbows, crossbows, monks, that would all be icing on the cake. At the same time, you can see this big line here going from Asphodel to Viclez. That's because I'm cloud trapezing in one of my gods. Now, yes, I'm aware they're a trio. I'm aware they lose paths when they are not together. I'm aware of that. You can also see that my other gods, much like last time, aren't doing all of the shit that they could be doing. And this is where that statement of, prefacing earlier of fatigue and not being in a good mind space, etc., comes into play, because it very clearly shows in the decision-making process and the willingness to just let things be at the moment, right? So obviously the intention here is to cloud trapeze. We've got some astral, we've got some air. The intention is to cloud trapeze in and do something like some air elementals and then get the fuck out of there, right? Because that would make perfect sense. The issue, of course, is going to be that summon air elementals is a level 3. It's a level 3, but it's not gonna be a level 3 at that point. Now, we could still have done something like summon lesser air elementals. It probably wouldn't have done much, but it is an option. Or we could... Could we do... Yeah. Anyways, the point is this is not going to work. It's not going to work at all the way that we would want it to work. But the idea was, along with the concept of how maybe get a air elemental or two into the archers, and they're going to die. But if you land an air elemental on the back of an archer line, sometimes what'll happen is the archers will all go, oh shit, and turn and start shooting at the air elemental. The air elemental will squish a couple, get shot down in the meantime, but also sometimes stray shots will just kill other archers, right? So it kind of does its own, they do their own work in that manner, right? That's not going to work because we're not going to have the paths. I knew that we weren't going to have the paths. My brain didn't care that we weren't going to have the paths. We did it anyways. And then we also, again, didn't do other things that we could with our gods this turn that we've been waiting on and we really should be doing, right? Again, the generalized kind of concept could be, oh, well, there's 32 and 36. That's a lot of research, and we're really trying to hit X, Y, Z. Yes and no, but I can tell you that it was not me sitting at this turn doing math saying, no, we cannot afford to lose the 66 research from This turn, that was not the case. It was oh, this is just easier to do, just leave it, let's go, right? And in much the same scenario, last turn we made Earth Boots with the explicit reason, oh, this one we do have an excuse for, right? Because we made Earth Boots with the explicit reason of wanting to do Gnome Lore. We don't have Gnome Lore yet, so we gotta get that. So we kind of like jumped the gun there on the whole, like, let's make some Earth Boots so we can start doing Gnome Lore, and maybe we'll actually get some Earth Gems, and then maybe we can summon a, like a Troll King or something like that, and we'll have, one army be able to be run around with the gods and have some high-ish Earth, etc. Blah, 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 right? My mind is either here or it's there, but it is never where it should be in this game at this particular moment, or at least in this like scrunched scenario of turns. So, is what it is. We're continuing to do other site searches. We are continuing to do things like recruitment, more Black Minotaurs. We are shipping them out basically as soon as we get them, ferrying them over to Sylvania. Where the army gathers. I will say, soothing kind of situation. This is just tangent land at this point. Soothing kind of situation, or not soothing, depending on your mindset. Do not play Asphodel if you don't like sorting troops. But at this point in time, especially, it was incredibly soothing to me to come into a turn and go to a location, and it only gets worse as the game goes on, because I really kick this into third gear. Just going in and sorting out all of my different types of mannequins and being like, oh great, I've got 17 behemoths here now, blah 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 blah. And a lot of these are sorted into like combat speeds. That's the kind of typical situation. You either do same types or you do combat speeds. Because if you mix all of them into one group, you'll just get like this weird spaghetti noodle of, your horses, wolves, boars, etc., etc., and then fucking harpies right the fucking back. So, anyways, random tangent. We're doing more Sage recruitment, both in Shadowglade and in Forbidden Forest. So, doing that. The goal is to try to get our research speed up to about 1,000. We're not good anymore on research speed. At 38, turn 38, 834 is not good. Or it's not great. It's not good either, I wouldn't say, but it's not abysmal. Right? It's that kind of scenario of like, our magic is kind of carrying us on this kind of concept. So we're wanting to try to hit that 1,000 kind of research speed and then stop fucking worrying about it, because by that point we're probably not gonna have any fucking money, or we're gonna be dead. Is the generalized concept. The goal though is hopefully get some sort of Pyrrhic loss, or cause man to have a Pyrrhic victory in Vaclez, move on Haloma or man from Sylvania, and hopefully by that time have Alt 7 giving us things like Oaken Army and Creeping Doom, primarily Oaken Army, to kind of counteract the absurd amount of arrow fire that we've seen, right? Because that will actually help a lot, right? Like giving a fair amount of protection to the whole army will actually really help for that type of situation. And it also gets us things like Marble Warriors for more elite squads. It's good stuff, generally across the board. Good stuff. And that's the plan. That's the plan. Everywhere else, we don't really have the gold to spend to do anything. That's the generalized concept. So, turn 38. Les, Sylvania. See you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.